math, technology, cryptography, open source software, economics, politics, and there were people thinking about and concerned
Probably
about
just
all of
going
these
to
things,
think,
and they were just talking to each other in one place, right? And like there was the politics and society forum in like inside the Bitcoin forum that had
it was like a response to 2008 to the crash, and many people felt like they were left on the sidelines.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you feel like that?
I think I was too young to understand what the 2008 crash was.
Okay.
Yeah, but I definitely, I think, kind of philosophically understood that there's something wrong with the way the internet works, and probably with the way that a lot more things work. And I wanted to kind of get in and see if we I guess see if Bitcoin could be part of a path to make things better.
Okay.
So I got kind of deeper and deeper into the Bitcoin space quickly, and then in September of 2011, this was when Mihail Isia, the person who would then become an Ethereum co-founder 2 years later, reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, I'm starting this Bitcoin magazine. Do you want to join?" And I'm like, Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, so I became the first writer for a Bitcoin magazine, and then
let me stop you right there for a
Sure.
second. So let's just imagine for a second that eventually when the flippening will happen, the most advanced, let's say, blockchain and cryptocurrency, that's going to be Ethereum, we're going to look back and see, okay, so there was these two kids that got together to do a Bitcoin magazine and then co-founded this thing called Ethereum. And one of them is a Russian immigrant to Canada, and another is a Romanian working anywhere. So innovation doesn't have to come from a specific place. It just happens.
Yeah.
What do you think was the real catalyst behind this? Because it could have been any other two people, but it was you. How did you think that actually happened? Because it goes beyond just you didn't meet, let's say, in person. I'm not so sure you.
Yeah, we did not meet in person until the summer of 2013. So 2 years later.
Exactly. So this is an example of a brand new way of partnering and working on decentralized work and projects.
I think like Bitcoin as a whole was like that at the beginning, right? I think I remember I did not know like any Bitcoiners in person until I went to I saw a couple of them at some meetups in 2012, which is like 1.5 years after I started. But most of them I did not know until I went to the San Jose conference in 2013, right? So everything was online. Like we were just interacting entirely online. It was just interacting on forums, right? And it was back then. This was definitely a very new way for people to be working together.
Remote work.
Yeah, remote work
on decentralized projects.
I think the other interesting thing is that like some people are just in locations that are more central, and other people are in locations that are less central, right? Like if you are in a big city in the U.S. and
that's the center.
In the 2010s, it was a center. I think now I think like geographic centers just matter much less than they did before.
Let's underline that for a second, and that's one of the ideas I would like to keep after this interview. So there is no longer a center, a physical center, a place there you go to be downtown. Yes, I want blockchain, crypto.
Right.
It's everywhere.
I think so. Okay.
That's great.
It is, yeah. It's wonderful, but. Again, I guess growing up and even in the Bitcoin space, like I definitely felt like I was kind of on the edges in some ways, right? Like I was, even when I was doing programming, like I could just tell that there were these other like students that were doing programming and they had, access to some like special programming classes and they were like studying and doing all these things together in person. And like I just like had no idea how to get into those things. And
physically?
Yeah, physically.
Okay.
Yeah, but this was 10 years ago, back when I think like I definitely still had the mindset that like the physical world is much more real than the internet.
And something changed.
Well, eventually, slowly over time. Yeah.
So you actually experienced 10 years ago what you're experiencing for the past year or so.
I guess so.
You're a decade ahead, at least.
Well, maybe I was, I guess, a decade ahead, but did not realize it, right? Like even then at the time, right? I think the mindset that the physical world is the world that matters. Like, it was deep, right? Like, I remember, I did not really feel like I was like fully a part of the Bitcoin community until I saw everyone in San Jose.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you're actually an appearance when you come to these meetings, these conventions. Everybody appreciates it, and you turn into a meme when you come along. You're from that place,
right?
Although you don't actually live in that place, you're everywhere.
Yeah. I do. Around in 2013, I basically started kind of doing the nomad thing and not even like living in any one place, right? In June 2013, I just like told my parents and like everyone, like, hey, I'm gonna take the rest of this university off term, just traveling around and doing Bitcoin things. And
you were already like 17?
I was 19.
19 already.
17 was when I joined Bitcoin Magazine.
So 19, you told your parents, I'm gonna go ahead and do my own thing, and they said,
my dad was fine with that.
Okay, made sense.
Yeah.
But mom?
I think mom was fine with it too. I think
eventually.
Yeah, no. I think like the one thing she was concerned about was like she was concerned about me going to Israel because apparently like it was just not very safe at the time or something. But no, otherwise fine.
So actually, what is your residence? What is your passport from these days? Still Canada?
Yeah, still Canada.
Okay.
And I mean, I still have the Russian one too.
Okay, but you're traveling all the time.
Yeah.
So how much time a year do you spend in Canada physically?
It depends. Again, I think on like some years it would be a couple of months, some years it would be like 1 month or a couple of weeks.
Okay, so you're international now.
Yeah.
You're decentralized.
I guess so.
I'm hearing more and more from you in conventions and everywhere about the social dimension of blockchain and Ethereum and all that. And I don't want to push this agenda too much, but I really want to understand, looking at your background, how important is that to you? Because you didn't grow up in a rich family, you didn't have a posh upbringing or something like that. Is it important to you to make it inclusive, or is just you feel like it's the right thing to do?
I definitely feel like it's the right thing to do. But is that different from it being important?
I don't know. Some people just greenwash these days.
Right. Some people just, I think, some people just greenwash, and then there's also some people in the crypto space who don't even talk about it, right? Like they really are just about hey, like when is the coin going to go up, and can we make sure I can be inside the citadel when the world blows up instead of outside the citadel?
And where is that citadel?
I think this is a citadel that they plan to build, and if you have enough coins, you can be rich and you'll be on the inside. Yeah,
that's very socialist.
I think it's the opposite of socialist, right?
It's utopia.
Well, it's utopia for some, but not for people who don't buy in early. That's
okay.
Yeah, there's there are people in this space that that do have these kind of very different perspectives, and I think even from the beginning, it was definitely. I think from very early on, it was definitely important for me to not be like that. I think I believe in making Ethereum and crypto, and kind of through crypto, I guess society in general, kind of open and accessible, and not try to kind of force people into boxes where you're either part of this or you're not part of this.
So you're not going to go up into the Elysium. Have you seen them?
I have, yeah.
So you're not going up into Elysium when the citadel is finished.
No. We want to make the world a citadel, right?
It could be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not like obviously like not in the sense of this kind of like very sterile thing where only the really clean things are allowed, but just in the sense of just something great where people want to live in it. Is there a metaphor for something that has like the good parts of a citadel, but also like the diversity of like say a jungle?
It could be. Yeah, I could see that in some architects' work that make living cities. No dust.
Yeah, I've seen those.
No noise. So yeah, we all live in busy cities, polluted cities, but it could be different.
It could be, yeah. I definitely hope it can be.
And we definitely have the whole technology for it. We have everything we need, but we don't do it. So sometime a guy like you comes along and proposes a different path. And you know how it goes. First, it's the geeks and freaks, and then everybody comes along and it becomes the new norm.
Yeah.
What stage are we in from where you're seeing things? How early are we into that change that you're proposing?
I think we're at the stage where the shift is just starting to happen, and people are kind of starting to really figure out in much more detail like what the shift actually would be. I think, especially Ethereum, for maybe the first 7 years, it was definitely much more of like this is a kind of a technology experiment. It's a science project, and we have these idealistic ideas about. Like, can we, have decentralized organizations? Can we create these kind of open global financial systems? And like, there was this big list of things that people wanted to do, but really, like, it was very small. Like, it was only a few thousand people, and we were just trying to figure out, like, can we make it possible? How do we scale it? How do we, make it more secure? And that experiment and kind of that very tech-oriented phase was good, right? Because that actually allowed us to better just understands that the whole thing actually is possible. Understand what actually makes sense to build, what actually doesn't make sense to build. We learned a lot of things.
Can we say Ethereum so far was something like Ethereum beta?
I think
for what it's supposed to be?
I think that's fair, yeah. And I think like now is the time when it's finally kind of, turning on and we're realizing that, Ethereum actually can be used to do big things that make things better for a lot of people, and we have to figure out exactly what that's going to look like.
That's going to be a challenge because I've been hearing you talk about different kind of attacks or pressures on the system and bad actors trying to use the technology in different ways. And you've been talking about hallways and rooms. And I like that analogy, that metaphor, because, everybody can get a room, even Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, right. But we don't want Mark Zuckerberg to control the hallways.
And that's what's at stake, actually.
Absolutely.
Can you explain that to people that don't really understand it? Because we are looking at all these free systems, apparently free systems, where the user is actually the product.
Right.
And it seems to go great so far, isn't it?
Yeah, again, that's how it always works, right? It goes great until until it stops, and sometimes it stops working for some people before other people, right? Like even Facebook and Twitter, for example, right? Like there are lots of startups that just make their entire businesses and spend years of their lives trying to work on building some piece that connects to Twitter and Facebook, and just tries to build on top of that ecosystem, kind of make their own piece that makes it better. And then one day, Twitter or the Facebook, the company, they come along with a cease and desist letter by some law firm, and they say no, we just had a meeting and decided that we don't like what you're doing, and you have to shut down, and your API access will be gone tomorrow. Or they say, either we're going to buy your company that you and your team spent years building for $200,000, and you'll sell to us for $200,000 and you'll like it, or we'll shut off your API access and we'll do it ourselves.
And this is well documented. It happens.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And it's the sort of thing that I think makes it much harder to actually build on top of them as ecosystems. It even happens for countries as well, right? I think there's the other kind of big political thing about these tech companies is that they are all based in the U.S. And maybe 10 years ago, right? Like I think people had the mindset that, these are just platforms in the cloud and, they'll treat everyone around the world fairly. And we can kind of...
Because that's the biggest democracy on earth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can, create a nice, happy global internet around them. But now, realizing that, hey, these things are controlled by specific people that are in a specific country. They're vulnerable to that specific country's, cultural trends and political pressures. And, if they decide to, like, you might not be welcome on them one day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like even like that's what's kind of started happening more and more the last few years, right?
I don't know, 1% more tokens. Is that correct?
The sort of thing where it's
like the network,
like even if you agree with like the very individual specific decisions, right? Like it still shows that hey, you actually are like building inside like a garden that's connected to one particular country.
Yeah, and it's all a big walled garden everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're actually talking now about at least 3 different internets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have the Western one, the Russian, and the Chinese. There is no middle ground for that. So these guys have some rules, but they don't work.
Right.
They don't work together. They don't play along nice.
Yeah, they don't.
So there is no actually nice, happy global internet. How do we do that? Because the basic idea of the internet was everyone can be connected. In the beginning, before the internet, any person on Earth would be 8 people away. And then with the internet, it was down to 2.5 people away. Now it should be, I don't know, everyone can connect with anyone and transport wealth, information, just connect. But it's not working yet. We're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet. I think that's like how to actually kind of get there, I think, is a challenge. I think like one of the things that I think like blockchains and crypto can provide is like they can provide something that still actually is a neutral ground, right? Like
okay.
They can
a neutral ground.
Yeah, like they can provide a place where like if you build something and you build something that like is on a blockchain or talks to a blockchain, then like you've created a service where people can use that service, and people can even build things around that service and like just make their entire lives around it without having to trust that you're not going to change the rules at some point in the future, right? And I think like we've seen on like both in the internet and in crypto, like this ability for people to like build things that like not just people talking to each other through an application, but even applications that talk to each other, right? Like
and there we go.
Yeah, it's important. That's I think like 20 years ago, the neutral ground that did a lot of that was just open source software, right? Like, because you have proprietary software where if you want to use that software, you basically kind of, you have to trust like maybe Microsoft or some other company. Like you could say, you become a vassal of Microsoft to some degree. Or
a developer that goes to the developer conference every year,
right,
gets touches the holy grail and then goes back to work.
Yeah, or if you're a user, then you're giving up a lot of control. And then we have open source software, and like to use open source software, like even if like Google writes the software, like you don't have to trust Google. Now you do have to trust them a little bit, because you have to trust like if they stop maintaining it, then like someone else has to start maintaining it. But it's much less, right? But the thing that we've seen going from 2000 to the year 2000 to the year 2020 is that like back then, most of the things that people did with software is just like a person and their computer. Right.
Okay.
But now the things that people do together are all interactions, and they're all really complicated interactions. Right? And open source software by itself doesn't do anything if the interactions are all happening through one server and somebody controls that one server.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, whereas a blockchain's like it does the thing that one server is supposed to do, except it's not under the control of one company. It actually is trustworthy, like whatever, you can see what's going on, right? It's like
so nobody owns the hallways,
right? Nobody owns the hallways. The rules of the hallways are transparent. They're open. Everyone understands what they are and what you can and like what you can and can't do. And like there's
and also the rules have been made democratic.
Yes.
with everybody together and test it together before we deploy, and we deploy democratically again.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes me wonder. So if I have a smartphone, I have an internet connection, I have a processor, I have some storage. I could be a node of anything.
Yes.
That's my dream. But for that, it cannot be too intensive on the consuming side, because it's going to lose the purpose of mobility.
Right.
So when will I become a node in that ecosystem? Because it's not there yet. If you want to actually make it global, it should go on every smartphone. Yeah, because it's a computer. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's going to get there. I think like that's it's a technology question more than anything else, right? Like because right now there's still there's like this difference between the dreams of a blockchain and like what blockchains the technology provide today in 2021, right? Like if you want to run an Ethereum node, then you need 250 gigabytes of space, and like you can do it on a laptop, you can't do it on a phone. If you want to send a transaction, the fees are pretty high. Like you can afford it if you're if you're wealthy, or if you're a crypto like if you've been a crypto person for 5 years and you're just using coins that you bought when they were 30 cents. But a lot of people can't afford it, right?
Exactly. So it's not there yet.
It's not there yet, but I think it is getting there, right?
But we are here. We are not so technical here. We're trying to show the people a roadmap that they can understand.
Yeah. And I think like the important thing is to just for people to know that the place where the technology is in today in 2021 is not the limit, right? Like there's thousands of very smart people actively working on improving it like every day.
Many more than ever.
Many more than ever. We actually had a workshop in Greece last week where all of the core Ethereum core teams came together, and we got a test network for our upcoming switch to proof of stake just finished in a week. So
that was amazing.
It is amazing, right? So Ethereum next year is not going to look like Ethereum today. Ethereum 2 years from now is not going to look like Ethereum next year. Like from a theoretical perspective, like we know how to solve these things, right? It's just more time.
But is it a technological hardware problem or a software problem?
What do you mean by hardware and software?
Because we're talking about everyone could be a node, and we can all be connected without a server, without anyone controlling the hallways, but it cannot run yet on my phone.
Right.
So if you want to make it run on my phone, what does it need to change?
Basically the blockchain's design needs to be kind of re-architected to be more scalable, and that's exactly the thing that we're working on. Like there's a long list of technologies, we can talk about like Verkle trees and ZK snarks, and like there's a lot of kind of fairly complex math that goes into making it possible. But basically once all of that stuff is in place, like you actually should be able to run a node on like basically any device.
2022, 23?
Yeah, 23. Let's see.
23. Because if we really want to make it democratic and available to anyone, it should run on a, let's say, $100 phone.
Absolutely.
And it will.
The technologies needed to get there exist already. It's just a matter of actually writing the software.
So it's about software, it's not hardware. So Samsung doesn't need to do a new phone for that.
Absolutely. No, yeah.
It can run on existing phones.
We do not need new phones, I think. And as the software gets better, the hardware that you need will probably keep going down.
Okay. And why is that?
Because when the software gets better, the algorithms become more efficient, right? Like we know how to verify computation in ways that in such a way that the person verifying the computation only needs to do a little bit of work, right? Like that's what ZK snarks do, right? Like you have, I have this really big computation, and I want the answer, so I give you the computation, you compute it, you tell me the answer, and you generate a proof, and I verify the proof, and I know that you did the computation correctly. But verifying the proof is it takes much less time than doing the computation. This is something that's possible today. It was science fiction 10 years ago, right? Okay. And the tools for doing that will get even better 5 years from now.
Okay, so that will eventually happen, and we will be running working in this environment that is essentially trustless. You can trust anyone because you don't need to trust them. And this concept of trustless systems is still mind-blowing to most people that hear it for the first time. So if we go out on the street and ask people, they will say, I trust my bank more than I trust the blockchain. What do we say to those people?
I think it's it's a reasonable response given where things are today. I think like blockchains are a new technology, right? And like people are not going to take the new tech. People are not going to just like trust a new technology because like a couple of geeks and mathematicians like convinced them that it's that it's okay to trust, right? Because like from their point of view, right, like they don't really. If you don't like understand like the deep nuances of what is the difference between like a data center and a consensus network, then like it pattern matches to just like Facebook, right? Like okay, like Mark Zuckerberg says like, hey, throw all your personal data on this thing and you can trust me, versus us saying, hey, throw all your applications on this network and you can trust it, right? It's like I think if you don't like deeply understand like what decentralization is, like the problem is that the language is similar, right? Like the language of Facebook is like, hey, we're this open global thing that connects everyone, and the language of blockchains is we're this
and it's going to be forever free.
Exactly, and the language
that disappeared from the platform eventually.
Right, and the language of blockchains is also we're an open and global and global thing where everything can talk to each other. So I think it's I understand why people are suspicious, right? Because it just like it feels like round two of trying to achieve the same goal, but like. At the end of the day, the things that are being done actually are different, right? Like one
is for profit.
Exactly.
It's on the stock in the stock market, and it needs to provide revenue for the people investing.
Yeah.
So it needs to do some things to do that. It doesn't do it publicly. It's not transparent.
Yeah.
On this other side, you can see the code, but can anyone actually understand the code? It's out there, it's open source. You can see it, you can go through it, but you need very smart people for that. So the technological barrier is pretty high for the average consumer, let's say.
It is high, right? But it's like I think in general, like people are not going to like we're not going to like maybe until we like genetically engineer ourselves to become like super smart 100 years from now, but like until then we're not going to just all understand the deep nuances of every technology and everything that we're using, right? Like even people like, for example, who trust democracy, a lot of them like they can't tell you the difference between first past the post and proportional representation and like which one of their country is, but even still they know democracy is good. I love democracy. So I think I think we can get to the stage where like people understands the principles and the ideals, and then the technology, like it is. I think there are things that can be done to make it accessible to more people. So like, for example, like I try to write articles on my blog, right, that just try to like explain how all these technologies work. And like, it's not going to be accessible to everyone, but it's, try to be accessible to more people than before. So like, even if you don't understand it, if the tech person at your company understands it, then you are like there's already like one person who that like you can personally relate to, who is kind of seen and understood.
But
things.
there's still this chain of trust that you need to build.
It is, yeah.
And it makes it part of your work to go in places like Romania and give interviews without getting too technical and explain to people.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing, right, is that like this is just something that no matter how you do it, it takes time to resolve, right? Like no matter, like people just naturally are not going to trust completely new things. But
if all people were smart enough to understand how the world would look in a year or two. So if everybody understood right now what's the potential of this technology and will acknowledge it as valuable to them.
I think like the next step then I think is like actually the same as the next step now, which is just to like get much more serious about like not just thinking about the technology theoretically, but actually like building specific things and like new kinds of institutions that are actually built on top of it, right? Like actually understanding like, okay, you have like we have blockchains, like we can make a DAO, like let's actually make a DAO, like what do we make a DAO for?
But then what is a DAO?
Right.
And then we need to explain that. But if people understood what a DAO is, it would be much simpler.
Absolutely.
Is democracy at its best?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, like what is a DAO? It's so the phrase stands for a decentralized autonomous organization, right? And it's basically like it's a smart contract. It's a program that runs on a blockchain, and the program has a set of rules, and the set of rules just like define how the organization works, right? Like who has what rights, who can vote,
why can't we have a party that's it's a DAO? I would vote for a DAO because if it's in the smart contract, they need to do it.
No.
Yeah, they said that we're going to do this, and this, and it involves numbers. We're going to put, let's say, 3% for education, 6% for health, and all kind of things. So we put it in a smart contract. You cannot walk away from it. It's a contract, and you're a DAO. But still, we still vote for people that are failing. People are failing, and we turn to technology looking for the future, hoping it's going to make things better.
Right. And I think like a lot of the time it does, right? But you needs to have technology combined with like the human intention to actually do the things that you want to do with the technology.
You still need the humans to input the data.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the beginning, you need humans to figure out what kind of thing to actually set up, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like even as we mentioned, like democracy, like these like details of like how elections actually work, like those monkeys did not have that, right? Like that was come up with and developed over time by people. And,
yeah. But if we had a DAO in the US, maybe we didn't have an insurrection in January.
Yeah, maybe. I think
it would have been transparent.
I think, I think like using blockchains to do voting is this kind of like definitely like this interesting and very complex topic. But I think it's definitely the sort of thing that definitely makes sense, like even right now, to start kind of dipping our feet into and understanding how to do better.
Because if you want democracy to work, it needs to be open and available to anyone. Okay, we can go even deeper into that. So DAOs are one of the future, one of the things you see for the future if people actually understood the technology, and also mostly layer 2s from what I see you're a big fan of.
I am, yes.
For how long?
Well, so layer 2s are just to kind of understand what they are, right? Like they're basically a scaling strategy, right? So a blockchain. The reason why blockchains are hard to scale is because, like, to be decentralized, like the way that blockchains work today is every node in the network has to verify every single transaction, right? So if you run a node, then like if you go and install Geth and you start syncing like Geth, right? Geth is like the name of a popular piece of software that people use to run an Ethereum node. Then you're verifying my transactions, you'll be verifying your transactions, you'll be verifying everyone's transactions, and what that means is that the amount of stuff that the blockchain can process as a whole, like from the entire world, is only equal to the amount that one single computer can handle. And
that's a bottleneck.
That's a big bottleneck. So layer 2s are a way of solving this, right? Basically, layer 2s are protocols that give the same like openness and security and trust properties of blockchains, and they do this by plugging into blockchains a little bit, right? So like they use the blockchain as kind of like a root of trust, but most things actually happen off-chain. Most things happen by just like a much smaller group of computers like running their nodes and basically like figuring out like what the next block is going to be, what transactions to include, and the blockchain itself only does a little bit of work, right? So the layer.
But you need the initial blockchain to have that point of trust.
Exactly. Yeah. So instead of everything going directly on the blockchain, everything like regular users' activity goes on these second layers, and then the second layers they hook into the blockchain and they like basically get the trust properties of the blockchain and they extend it to this other system.
Okay.
So instead of
so these layer 2s are like helpers.
Exactly.
And they go ahead and do the work, and then they go in and they double check and put it in in the blockchain.
Exactly. And like just to give some numbers, like Ethereum today is processing about 15 transactions a second.
Yeah.
With these layer 2s, it becomes possible to process between 1,000 and 5,000 transactions a second. Like this is, if everyone moves to these layer 2s and they're built correctly. And then...
But it's still not enough.
Right. So then once we have layer 2s and sharding, which is another scaling technology, right? Like it's basically a way of improving the blockchain itself to be more efficient. Then we go up to more than 100,000. So
okay,
yeah. So the technology there to scale is there, right? So I think like if you're not very technical and you're just a user, right? Then the important thing is that like layer 2s and sharding, like they will like basically scale the blockchain, and they will give you a scaled version of like basically the same experience blockchains have today, right? So if you could do something on Ethereum today, you will be able to do it inside of a rollup, inside of a shard tomorrow, and it will have the same functionality, like and the same, the same kinds, like you'll be able to trust it in the same way. It will be open and transparent in the same way. You'll have like block explorers to let you see what's going on inside of every transaction on the internet in the same way. Mm-hmm. But instead of being very expensive, it'll be very cheap.
So I'm going to try to put that into a metaphor. So now we have this train running on coal still, making a lot of noise, making a lot of smoke, but it's still moving. It's moving. Yep. And we're going to turn it into electric, and then we're going to put some nuclear power on it, and it's going to go very fast and very cheap.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen, like you said, sharding is, layer 2s are here, and they're expanding, and sharding, you've been talking about it for 2023 at the earliest.
Right.
Don't you think we could benefit from sharding earlier? So
we could.
Expanding the possibilities of the Ethereum network a little faster?
We could, and I think we're definitely trying very hard to make that happen. But I think like even before sharding, right, rollups already give a much better experience. So it's I think rollups, like I think, let us like expand enough to cover what Ethereum can, like the needs that people have today, and then Ethereum's going to grow, people's needs are going to grow, and when people's needs grow, then sharding will be there. And
but the needs are here.
Right.
Transactions are very expensive on the Ethereum network.
Well, today we don't even have rollups, right?
Okay.
So today it's today it's like if there's like rollups, they let you go from like 1 train to 100 trains, and then sharding lets you go from 100 trains to 10,000 trains. But right now, like maybe we have, like if I had to guess, I would say we have like somewhere between like 10 and 50 trains worth of people who want to be passengers.
Okay.
And then 2 years from now, I think it will be a few hundred.
Because it's still early.
Exactly.
But there's still projects that are using proof of stake and sharding, and they're doing it in a very interesting way. And they say they can process thousands and even hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. How do you see those projects? There's a few of them already.
There's a few of them. I think it depends on which ones. I think like the projects that claim that they can do lots of transactions without sharding, like those ones are making a lot of serious trade-offs, right? They're basically saying to run a node, you have to have a big server. So like only a few people can run a node. The ones that are saying they have sharding, I think it depends on which specific one, because like sharding is a hard technical problem, right? Like there's a lot of challenges with like doing it correctly. I think a lot of the time, like they only have a few shards, or a lot of the time, like they can theoretically do one amount, but they're only doing a smaller amount right now. Sometimes like they can shard, but they only have like very limited functionality. It's like there definitely isn't something that lets you do like Ethereum style, like very complex transactions. But like right now, with the level of security and decentralization that the Ethereum community demands, I think different systems make different trade-offs, and I think like everyone's just continuing to improve over time.
I'm listening to you, and I'm seeing the Apple strategy. Everybody's trying new hardware improvements, but Apple says no, they are not ready yet. And I'm gonna give it to you when I'm gonna I can make sure I can roll up that in a good way. It needs to be solid and interesting and nice.
Right. It's kind of like that. Though For
But
people who,
Apple is too expensive.
This is true. Yeah, I mean, for people who do want things now, like there are other approaches, right? So like one of the things that the Ethereum Layer 2 projects are doing is they're saying we'll do functionality first, and then we'll add more security later. So like for example, like Polygon, right? It's this very big project. It's they're like in the long term, they want to be more of like this like layer 2 like fully secured by Ethereum. Right now, they're not fully secured by Ethereum, right? Like right now, like if you can take over 2/3 of the Polygon nodes, then like you can steal things inside Polygon, right? So
And that happens.
It hasn't happened yet, right? But like
there's some blockchains that
there are, yes, but at the same time, right? Like there's lots and lots of applications that like don't need like the huge gold standard level of security, right? Like if all you wants to do is just like make payments for your coffee, then like who cares if someone can break it with $1 billion? So for people that just like wants to deploy now and wants to build things now, like Polygon's a great place to do it, right? And they have a lot of scale now, and they do have the talent now. They actually,
but Ethereum also has a talent.
Well, I mean, Polygon is part of Ethereum land, right? Like it's
okay.
Yeah, like right now it's what's called a sidechain, and they want to become an Ethereum rollup in the future.
Okay.
And they're not the only one, right? Like even like Optimism and Arbitrum, for example, like they're also saying functionality first and then security after. So like that is a change, right? I think maybe like 2 years ago, like if the Ethereum community definitely had more of like what you call the Apple mindset, but I think we're definitely like responding to like what people are demanding. And like we're definitely,
I could see you're okay to take 2.5 years just to look at a proposal and see if it works and test it and make it, let's say, anti-fragile just by poking at it and see if it bleeds.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not so sure we have enough time to go ahead and take another 2.5 years.
I think that's fair. And like I guess I've said, right, like I think the community is realizing that there isn't 2.5 years, and the community is adapting, right? Like they're basically saying like, hey, we're going to like launch things that are secure enough for people's needs today, and then like we can develop all of this extra technology at the same time, and that's fine.
Okay, because you have the greatest developers in the in the blockchain ecosystem, and Ethereum could.
Yeah, we go.
And maybe you should, because there's also a sustainability issue at play. It's becoming more and more obvious that blockchains are part of the ecosystem, of the natural ecosystem. And I know it's an important topic to you too. How do you see going to proof of stake in terms of sustainability and environment?
No, I think going to proof of stake is definitely, I think, like very important for the Ethereum community for a few reasons, right? And like one of the big ones is definitely that like proof of work in its current form, right? It just consumes huge amounts of electricity. It consumes huge amounts of computer hardware. It just consumes a lot of resources, and like what's the result of that? Like there's a lot of pollution. CO2 goes up faster. Electricity often gets like taken away from just like villages and people who need it more. There's definitely a lot of these just like very negative things. Even just like GPUs become less accessible to gamers because the mining ecosystem is taking it, right? Like there's
some people looking at you when you say that, and they say, yeah, because of you, man.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of kind of like problems, both big and small that proof of work is causing, and I think like for that reason, right? Like we've been just enthusiastic about trying to move to a better model, and we have been for a while. And I think like the challenge for Ethereum is that like we're not just talking about a new blockchain, right? Because if we launch a new blockchain and we just launch a new blockchain as a proof of stake system from day one. But if we launch, here we have an existing blockchain, and we have to upgrade that existing blockchain in flight. Like we're basically upgrading the engine of an airplane while the airplane is flying. And like it's a tough thing.
Look,
right?
while we're flying.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, and no one's done it yet, right? But at the same time, like the teams that are working on building all of that software, like they've worked really hard. And
I could see you are very happy with the test for Ethereum too, and people are very very interested in the success of that project. There's a lot of ETH locked in that contract, and people are looking forward to ETH 2.0. There's even memes on the internet about with photos of you, real old Ethereum 2.0 deploys, and you're like 60.
Yeah, I remember those. I think it'll happen much before then. I think, especially after this last week where we built the testnet, people have become much more optimistic now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you see the urgency in the climate or the technology side? In the scalability for making it available to more and more people socially, let's say, but also in the climate. What's more urgent to you?
I think they're equally important because I think if we don't have like either of those, then like different kinds of bad things will happen, right? Like I think if the blockchains stay on proof of work, then I mean obviously the that's just like bad for the environment as a whole, and that's just like a big problem far beyond the blockchain space. And also just it means that like everyone who loves the environment is going to have a much harder time like also participating in the blockchain space, right? Yeah, that's I mean that's like something that people are saying even now, right? Like there's a lot of people are getting excited about NFTs, and like NFTs are great because, like, in some ways, because they're bringing in a community that was not interested in blockchains before. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of people saying, like, hey, if I build an NFT, like, am I contributing to killing trees? And like, if
at this time you are.
At this time we are, exactly. And that's something that we have to just work very hard on getting Ethereum out of that. So
NFTs are killing trees. That sounds bad.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think after EIP 1559, which got included in like 2 months ago, actually things are a bit better, right? Because now instead of transaction fees going to miners, like transaction fees are mostly getting burned, right? So at least you can say if you send a transaction, like you're not increasing the amount of tree killing that's happening. So it's better now, but with proof of stake it goes away completely, and that's much better.
But you're not the biggest threat to climate in proof of work.
We're not.
You're only the second.
This is yes.
Would you like to talk about the prime suspect?
Oh, Bitcoin.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you still love Bitcoin?
It's a good question. I think, and I love a lot of the ideals behind Bitcoin. I love and I definitely like a lot of like what Bitcoin is trying to accomplish. But at the same time, like I think Bitcoin has turned into like something that's definitely more distant from my values than it was like 5 to 10 years ago.
Because of?
There's a difference between Bitcoin in 2013 and Bitcoin in 2021. Like Bitcoin in 2013, it was this like community that had some of everything, right? Like back then on the Bitcoin forum, on the politics and society section, like you had some people who were libertarians, some people who were socialists, some people who were anarcho-mutualists, and like all these different perspectives.
What?
Anarcho-mutualism. It's how to describe mutualism. It's like basically this kind of like middle of the road type of like anarchism that says that like you're okay with markets, but you don't want the like to have very strong property rights. I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like there were all
hard topic.
Yeah, there were all of these different groups, right? What's happened, I think, since then is like the cryptocurrency community kind of split up, right?
Yeah.
Like Ethereum people went in one direction. Even in Bitcoin, the big block people and the small block people went in different directions. And the like the place where Bitcoin is at now, like it's very it's something that's kind of like polarizing, that does like, it does a good job of appealing to a specific type of a type of personality and a specific type of people, but like at the cost of being like not like very like not attractive to people, to a lot of people that are outside of that group.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
let's try and make it. Let's break it down. So technologically wise, it's still in 2013.
Bitcoin, the protocol, has not changed that much, right? Like the main thing that's happened, like there was the big block versus small block debate. And the big block versus small block debate was basically like, do we want to increase the size of Bitcoin blocks or do we want to keep them small? It's a trade-off between two different kinds of decentralization, right? Because if you have big blocks, then lots of people can include their transactions, and so like Bitcoin, the system becomes much more accessible to use. Like you don't have very high fees, but at the same time, to run a node, like you need a big node to process all the transactions.
So you're gonna need a bigger hardware,
right? But if blocks are small, then it's easy to run a node, but there's very little space to send transactions. And so if you want to participate as part of the economy, then like often you can't do it on the chain itself. You have to use like some second layer protocols.
So actually Bitcoin is slow. And the Bitcoin maxis say it's a good thing. It's slow.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's expensive. It's a place to store value.
Yeah, and like the Bitcoin perspective on decentralization is basically that like they think, or they would say what's most important is for the base layer to be decentralized. Like they would say, like, you know, like Bitcoin, the base layer, like, you know, and like it is very easy to run a node, right? Like it's true that you cannot run an Ethereum node on your phone. You probably can run a Bitcoin node on your phone. You still don't want to because it will drain your battery, but like, you can. Like the thing that perspective does not include is like, what good is a decentralized system if in order to use it, you have to connect to it through completely centralized layers, right? Using Bitcoin, you know, the fees are high, and like they might say, oh, you can use the Lightning Network, but like the versions of the Lightning Network that work really well, like they really heavily rely on like a small number of centralized nodes, right? And like sometimes people even say like, oh, even if the Lightning Network doesn't work, then it's fine. People will just use Bitcoin banks, right? People will just send their Bitcoin to Coinbase, and you just like send transactions between your Coinbase accounts.
But it becomes centralized, so
exactly.
it defeats the purpose.
Like the system is decentralized, but your experience of using it is centralized, and that's. It's a sort of kind of like trade-off that's, I guess, appealing to some people but not other people, right? Like I think it's kind of like the capitalism versus socialism debate a little bit, right? Like you say that, you know, you have like these kind of like these rules that say, you know, you have a free market and like it's decentralized in that way, but then, you know, you have these monopolies, and like
they are turning into monopolies.
Exactly, like they're turning into monopolies, and like there's people who say that like it's just enough that like there's the theoretical possibility of like making your own billion-dollar company, but like it's you know, it still ends up being the centralized system
because efficiency wins eventually. Efficiency wins, and it's actually much cheaper to transact and to move funds through a centralized exchange like Binance or Coinbase. So they win on efficiency.
Right, exactly. If the decentralized systems like can't get up to that level, then like people are going to just move to using the centralized things. And the
battle is lost.
The battle is lost, and I think like to not lose the battle, like we just like I think the only answer is to just try very hard, right? I think if you just
upgrade.
Exactly. Try very hard, upgrade. I think it's something that we've just learned from just like a long like period of history, that like just any kind of like ecosystem with people, like there's these sort of like there's all of these kind of like bad outcomes that it sometimes ends up just sliding toward, and if you don't want it to slide toward them, like you just needs to like have like people who actually care about the issue and like working toward and creating alternatives, right? Like
so you actually need people working on that with a certain mindset, with a certain goal in mind, but always evolve. It's not enough to deploy and leave it there. You need to upgrade it. And an upgrade in the Bitcoin network is long overdue.
Right.
But is it fixable?
I think like to understand Bitcoin, right? Like you cannot understand Bitcoin as a technology. You have to understand Bitcoin as a cultural movement that happens to have a technology.
It becomes much more important as a cultural thing now.
Right. Right now, it's like from a technological perspective, like yes, you know, you can just replace the whole thing with a some like a ZK snark based thing that gives you 1,000 transactions a second, but at the same time is very easy to verify. Like we basically just like what we call a ZK rollup in Ethereum. Like you can do this, but like that requires a culture that's willing to like accept rapid change and a culture that's willing to accept the idea that like what's constant about Bitcoin is kind of the the like the underlying goals and kind of the vision and the intention, and not like the specific piece of software, right? The current mindset is about the specific piece of software.
So I'm looking at this and I'm seeing disruptors becoming entrenched. So the people that came to change the system, challenge the system, now become a system that is unfixable because it doesn't want to move. Is this how it is?
In a lot of ways, yes. I think like there's.
Is this going to be their doom?
Good question. I think. I don't know. It could be their doom, or it could be that it just kind of keeps on going along for a while.
But it doesn't end well.
Like it could either end with a bang, or it could kind of end with a whimper. Like what I mean is like it could end like there would never be any specific kind of end where like where people recognize that like this is the place where the vision failed. But it just ends up being much less interesting than it could have been, and we just get like the same thing that we've been getting from the centralized Silicon Valley tech space for 20 years.
Okay. You cannot stay slow. You need to move.
I think you do need to move.
Because life is motion.
Exactly.
Okay, coming back on what we are talking about, energy and all that. You were talking about villages being cut from power, and it's becoming a real issue. China has banned most of mining, not because of ideological reasons, but mostly because of energy crisis.
Right.
And we have Lebanon also going dark again, and we have also India experiencing many problems, and also again oil prices are surging everywhere. So we have a climate crisis, but now we have an energy crisis. And if you look at the whole ecosystem, the blockchain space is consuming energy like a few countries combined. So that needs to be fixed. How do we fix this?
Well, that's what proof of stake is for, right? So I guess for those who don't know, proof of work is this. It's a consensus mechanism, right? It's a way for blockchains to like basically agree on what transactions they're including, and proof of work relies on basically to be a node that participates in proof of work, you have to basically have a computer that's running 24/7, that's solving these like very complicated math problems, and you have to basically have a computer why you need those problems, right, is basically to prove that like you actually are an independent actor in the node, right? Like you're not just somebody pretending to be a billion nodes, right?
Yes.
Like this is a Sybil attack problem, right? Like if you do not have something like proof of work, then like I can just make on my computer, I can run 1 billion virtual machines, and I can make 1 billion fake computers, and I can connect 1 billion fake computers to the network, and then like I would be able to decide what transactions get included.
But we actually fixed that.
Right.
You made that work through code.
For code, we can fix it, right? But the problem is the thing that can't be the thing that's harder is choosing like deciding what order transactions get included in, right? Because like deciding did I send it first or do you send it first, like that's information about the real world, right?
Okay.
If you want to answer the question, is this transaction valid? That's a question you can express as a math problem, right? Like you can make a formula that says if the transaction passes the formula, it's valid. But the question, did I send this transaction 2 hours ago or did I send it 2 months ago? Like that's not math. That's the world. And
that's an Oracle issue.
Exactly. And like the proof of work is just trying to be this kind of like democratic Oracle where like all the nodes are basically like voting on what order to include things in. So
it actually comes back to order.
Right.
We need to make people understand that proof of work, it consumes energy because we want to make sure.
Yes.
It doesn't want because we want to create heat.
Right.
We want to buy expensive hardware and make the GPU prices explode. We just need to make sure. If you want to make sure, you need to have computation.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's right. So that's proof of work. And the problem with proof of work is that you have all of these nodes that are just like burning huge amounts of electricity. Now, proof of stake. One analogy that I use sometimes to describe proof of stake is I talk about it as being like virtual mining, right? So basically, instead of like the Ethereum blockchain already is kind of like a virtual reality, right? You know, you have people doing things, you have assets inside of it, you know, you have people, you have economic activity, you have like interactions. It's a virtual reality. So now let's say instead of the so the problem we're trying to solve is how do we prove that someone isn't just making a billion fake computers? Proof of work says to prove that you're not a billion fake computers, you have to actually solve a lot of math puzzles. A real computer can solve a lot of math puzzles, a fake computer can't. In proof of stake, we say, well, instead of relying on like physical computers in the real world, we're going to create a process where if you have coins inside the system, you can convert those coins into virtual miners. Right? And then the virtual miner.
And this is how we trust you.
Exactly. So then if you have a virtual miner, then like we know that, you know, like you have some amount of kind of economic stake in the network, and you
got skin in the game. You're not gonna destroy the network because you're gonna lose with it.
Yeah, and you can't create a billion fake virtual miners because to create a billion fake virtual miners, like you need a billion ETH, right? And nobody has a billion ETH. So that's so the idea is like basically like it's the same kind of like game to like you're basically like proof of work and proof of stake, they're both proof of economic resources, right? But proof of stake, because it's virtual, like there isn't actual all of this like real massive spending of energy happening.
That's proof of stake. But I would like to go a little further from that because that's technology, that's coding. We can fix it. We have the solutions for that. Let's go a little bit into the, let's say, in the social justice things.
Okay.
Because, I understand we can fix that, but what do we actually do with energy? Because there's a lot of issues at play. There's different economies. Climate change is affecting countries in a different way. In a global scheme of things, proof of stake is going to solve just a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm looking also at projects that are trying to solve the issue of sending energy as a currency. So can we use blockchain to transfer wealth and make it work better for different communities, let's say? Not only money, but also energy. Or because we have NFTs now, we have intellectual property, we're trying to move that for the blockchain. What's next?
There definitely have been projects trying to create like different energy-related markets on a blockchain. Look, there is often platforms that try to like create things for trading carbon credits. That's something that happens. Like that could even be something that could be combined with NFTs, right? Like if that's like they're both the same thing. They're just this kind of like a record that in the case of carbon credits that like you did something to, you know, either consume less carbon and take carbon out of the air. There's a lot of teams that are working on that. Like I remember there was one team creating a kind of more decentralized energy market that would be more easy for like wind and solar to participate in. I think it was in Austria a few years ago. There's a project to do like, trading carbon credit or trying to do something with carbon credits in Taiwan. There's a lot of these. I think for any of these things to succeed, right? Like the technology is there. What we need is like institutions to be willing to say, like, yes, we're doing this.
Institutions come to you and usually talk to you about technology. When they talk to you, what they're actually asking? They want to understand Ethereum, or they want to see how they can use it in governing a country or making it easier for their citizens to live?
I think some of both. I think often they're interested in just like what is happening in Ethereum. Like, you know, they're at this point, you know, they understand what proof of stake is, and a lot of them would love proof of stake to be finished as much as we would.
Do you feel like you're wasting time explaining all over again every single time?
we've been, I think, over the last year, definitely trying to do a much better job of just like having better public-facing materials for everything. Right?
Okay.
Like if you compare the Ethereum website today and the Ethereum website 2 years ago, I think most people would say it's much better.
Yeah.
But there also wants to hear about specific things. I think the other thing, of course, they wants to hear about is like, like how can the technology actually be used? And I think now definitely is the time to start like thinking much more seriously about answering that question.
Do you feel like they're pushing back or they're trying to work with you?
Some of both. I think a lot of them are trying to work with us. The pushing back, I think that's less like us as developers that are getting that. That's more the exchanges, right? Like the exchanges are much more kind of at the front lines of the like issues that the government regulators are concerned with.
Okay.
But I think I feel like the exchanges have been doing a good job recently.
Really? Are you a fan of the big ones? Coinbase, Binance?
I guess mixed. Like I think they do a lot of things. Like they do a lot of things that like I think are big, like not good for the ecosystem, and then they they do some things that are just obviously necessary for the ecosystem. Like the problem, right, is that like I think like I personally, like would want the even the space to be much more decentralized, and like you can do that within the crypto space, right?
Yeah.
And like within the crypto space, I think like 4 years ago, like you would have needed a centralized exchange to just move between different assets. Like today you don't. And that's like I think that's progress, like, and that improves a lot of things, right? Like if like the centralized exchanges, they just get hacked all the time. And if you just use the decentralized ones, then like like that risk goes away. The needs to kind of trust exchanges.
Yeah, but still, Binance is going to win on efficiency in front of Uniswap as long as you don't have proof of stake on the Ethereum network.
It depends. Like I think Uniswap is more efficient in some cases, but not in others.
Okay.
Like I think if you're just an Ethereum user and like let's say I have like OMG coins and I want to convert them into Kyber coins, like on Uniswap it's one click. On Binance, that's like create an account, log in, deposit, trade, withdraw. Like,
so more friction.
Exactly. I think,
but once you get past that friction,
right.
Binance is going to offer you a whole bunch of services. They can offer you, let's say, the Binance card. They can offer you futures or any kind of product.
This is true. I think like the decentralized ecosystem does have to kind of keep on, like keep moving forward, right? Like it's, life is progress. And if it doesn't, then people are going to use the centralized stuff. And then like the one area where you do need the centralized ones, right, is like interfacing with the fiat ecosystem, right? The banking system is centralized, like fiat currencies are centralized, and like you can't make a decentralized exchange with those because like how are you going to even how is a cryptocurrency even going to verify that a US dollar transaction happened, right? Like you can't do that. The technology doesn't exist. So like that is one place where you do need the intermediaries. And like just being intermediaries, they do end up having a lot of just all sorts of different challenges.
Of course.
So yeah, I guess like I think
but when you're talking to institutions and governments, do you see they are afraid of the unknown, or they actually know that what they want, what they fear from the blockchain ecosystem?
Some of both. I mean, they definitely have specific concerns. Like they're definitely worried about money laundering. They're worried about they're always worried about scams. They were worried about ICOs 4 years ago. So some of both.
But eventually, if governments will end up doing, let's say, decentralized, let's say, crypto fiat, yeah, we're going to have national banks issuing in crypto like the Chinese are already experimenting with. Do you think that will help? Do you think it's a good thing that they are looking at this?
I feel like it's
going to be centralized.
Right. I actually feel like those projects like are just going to be less of a big deal than we thought they would be 5 years ago, because like there's just a lot of internal kind of reasons why it's hard for them to like actually like make a kind of like a full like a proper full digital centralized digital currency, or like you can just go and have a wallet and you have your 5 digital euros. Like there's like even if you just look at kind of like how DCEP, the Chinese kind of like centralized coin like has evolved, like at the beginning they were exploring like, do we do it on a permission chain, like is it going to be direct to consumer or whatever. But what we've discovered now is like, one, like it basically doesn't have a blockchain. Two, it's not even direct to consumer, right? Like it's like consumers would use it through I think like there's like a banking intermediary in the middle. So it ends up actually looking not that different from like what Tencent or like what Alipay and WeChat Pay do already, right? Okay. So it's like basically like when the kind of vision has to collide with like existing political reality in any country, like it just turns into something much less ambitious. What the result is that it just doesn't have like a lot of the properties that I think people like from cryptocurrency, right? Like you cannot make a Uniswap that talks to like any of these CBDCs. You cannot make a any kind of decentralized.
Because they're not transparent.
Because they're not transparent, because they're not like hooked up to like any infrastructure where you can verify transactions easily, because of like all of these things.
You cannot know the supply.
Right. Like if you send a transaction, like like I don't think they even have like a link that you can go to like to verify that transaction happened. So basically I think. We've seen exactly why, like sometimes to make a big change, you do just have to like start with something completely new. And I think blockchains are in a good place to actually do that.
And Ethereum is a good place to work on.
Absolutely.
If you want to. If you want to. But going back to the bankers, I've been talking with some guys working in the banking system, and they told me if they actually made with the European Central Bank the decentralized, let's say, euro, there will be no need for banks.
Yeah.
So what do we actually do?
Right.
Maybe they should start learning new things if the euro would become digital.
Yeah, no. If the euro becomes digital, yeah, banks would have to like really change what they do and what people go to them for. I think there are things that they can do, but it's a big change. So, and of course, they would prefer to keep things the way they are.
Because having a digital euro sounds cool, but what do you actually need these currencies? And we go back to inflation. We go back to 2007 and 8, and inflation is still a tool used very widely. And blockchains actually defeat that. So you cannot do inflation too easily if you have a limited supply.
Right.
Do you think that's let's say a bridge they cannot cross because they really need to control the supply?
I guess my view on this is like a bit different from a lot of crypto people. Like I think a lot of crypto people have this mindset of like wanting cryptocurrency to completely replace fiat. And like I think cryptocurrencies and blockchains can do a lot of good even if they don't completely replace the existing system, right? Like even if most people use US dollars, like there's a lot of specific places where like cryptocurrency for payments is really valuable, and where like DAOs are really valuable, where just doing things on blockchains to make them more open and transparent is valuable. If you look at how the crypto space has actually evolving, right? Like there's stable coins now, right? And like people wants to have something that has like the price stability of a US dollar together with the just ability to use it in an open, transparent, and decentralized way that blockchains provide.
But there's no stability in the US dollar now.
Right. Well, it's like right now there is, right? But 10 years from now there might not be. And I think the good thing that blockchains provide, right, is they give people choice, right? Like even if you hold stable coins today, if the US dollar starts becoming really unstable tomorrow, you can switch them over to something else.
And you're a big fan of option. You want to let people choose, not like El Salvador.
Right.
I've been hearing you talk about that, and I think it's an important topic to address because many people are saying, okay, so there's El Salvador, there's going to be, I don't know, Panama next, another Southern American country, and then, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, who? Hungary? China? We don't know. So how do you see establishing a cryptocurrency as a national currency?
I guess one thing is like what's the do they necessarily have to choose a specific one, right? Like it's I guess we don't yet know well like what exactly is the best model for kind of countries to become to like fully become crypto friendly, right? Like I think there's clearly
So if you had to do it, you wouldn't know how to today.
And there's a lot of things that I think are obvious, right? Like just like make it easy for people to access cryptocurrency, and like there's things on blockchains that governments can absolutely should experiment with doing, but this approach of saying like, we're going to choose one particular cryptocurrency and then we're just gonna like force everyone to have the capability, the ability to accept it, like it's the two problems I have with it, right? Like one is that it kind of takes away choice and like, it forces a specific option on people. And the other problem is that it just like when it happens that fast, right? And like it's forced adoption instead of being organic adoption. And so people are just like pushed into this thing where they don't really understand it very well. Like that's an easy opportunity for people to lose a lot of money. It's an easy opportunity for people to get scammed. It's just like that's
or get them angry.
Exactly, or get them angry. Like I think like just forcing things on people that quickly is just generally like not something that should be done unless there's like an extremely good reason to do it.
Yeah, but it's gonna take more than a lifetime to do make adoption.
I don't think it needs to. Or I don't think it will take more than a lifetime. I think we're totally capable of adopting things quickly. Like I think if you just look at like social networks, like they can grow very quickly. If we look at even things within the crypto space, they can grow very quickly, right? Like Uniswap, nothing to very big thing in 2 years. If we look at adoption of layer 2s, like nothing for a while, and now it's going exponential. I think I think you can trust people, and I think if there is something that like really provides value for people, then they'll figure their way around it.
Okay, if you say so, because it doesn't look that we're moving so fast. So if you look at a scale from 0 to 100, are we past 5?
It depends on how you measure the scale. I think
everyone touched cryptocurrency. Everyone understood how it works.
We're not past 5 yet. And
we're not past 5% yet.
Right. No, and I think like there's reasons for that, right? Like it's okay to be careful about new technology. Another is that, like, we talked about scalability. The scalability is not there yet. The scalability will be there in 2 years, right? But the scalability is not there now.
Okay.
So right now, right, like if you want to use cryptocurrency for payments, you have 3 options, right? One option is use a centralized solution. The second option is pay a lot of fees. And the third option is to use some obscure cryptocurrency no one cares about, right?
Yeah.
So like right now it's not the best, but but things are improving, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think as things improve, like that's it's a good opportunity to like actually like restart the process, and like, I think we can do it.
Okay, so if you look at the history of internet, are we past 2000?
Not yet.
Not yet. We are not in 2000.
No.
Okay, so there's still time.
I think so.
So you still have time. It's still early. Talking about shaded coins. How do you feel about the dogs? I'm sure you get that question a lot, but there's also an interesting meme of you running around, you as Thanos. You know that one? You like it?
I haven't seen that one yet, actually.
I can show it to you.
Okay, let's see.
I don't want to show you all the memes because some of them are crude, but this one is actually is you like Thanos with a fist, and you have all the dogs here, and
wow,
equilibrium needs to be restored, and
that's amazing.
I have it on my phone. I'm going to show
well, let's see it.
Perfectly balanced, all things should be.
Oh, fun. No, I guess. What do I think about the dog coins? I definitely loved Dogecoin right from the beginning. I think like one of the problems with the crypto space is that I think there's a lot of people that just like take it way too seriously. They're like, no, we're Bitcoin. We're the one thing that's gonna save humanity from this terrible fiat Keynesian apocalypse, and we're doing really important work. I just think like, if you have that kind of mindset, it's just like way too easy to just have your mind go in crazy directions. You just like, and then Dogecoin comes along and it's like, well, but we have a dog.
Yeah.
So the having that in there is
So if that's Dogecoin, how's Shiba Inu?
right. So I think probably I guess the problem is right, like a Dogecoin is like once you have like one dog coin that's really becomes really successful and gets to a $50 billion market cap. Like if a joke becomes that successful, then you have the grifters, right? And you have like the people that want to get rich without actually being a joke, and that's again, look, that always happens. It's kind of inevitable, right? And so you started seeing all these other dog coins that just say, hey, if Dogecoin can have $50 billion, then why can't we?
Why not?
Yeah, why
and
not?
it's happening. We had one last week.
No, totally. Oh, fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not fun when you're the guy hanging.
Exactly.
left hanging.
And then all of these other dog coins, they have founding teams, and there are a lot of them they're launching because the people in the founding teams think that they can be rich and get $50 million and get a mansion out of this. So and then the thing
and then the rug pull comes.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing that these coins started also doing is they started giving half of their supply to me, right? And basically saying that hey, look, Vitalik Buterin is a holder of the coin. He supports us.
And then you rug pull.
Yes, yeah, of course. Hey, you give me half the supply, I'm going to give it to charity because that's what I do. I don't know.
Actually, you do that a lot.
Yeah.
Do you keep track?
Some.
Do you know how much you've actually given so far?
Before the dog coins, I think it was somewhere around $10 million. But this was before this year, right?
Okay.
And then now this year a lot more, right? There's I think I gave what was it 10 million to longevity research, then another form. 6 million recently to another one of those projects, a fairly big amount to global poverty relief, some to AI research. But then of course the dog coins came, right? And then that's when I decided that give all the proceeds from the dog coins to all these lovely groups that I've been trying to support for a long time.
You wanted to put the memes to a good use.
Exactly. Yeah. I think why not whatever the beginnings of Shiba are, why not help Shiba become a coin that is a coin about doing something meaningful.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Do you actually believe that they can have real life use?
I think realistically, most of them are going to go nowhere, and we're not going to see them in 10 years.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean even billionaires can be pulled into.
Exactly.
Like Elon Musk.
Yep. Yeah, Elon Musk is. See. Well, yeah, I guess. We'll see what happens with Dogecoin. I think.
Not even Dogecoin. He even tweeted about other Dogecoins.
Oh,
Shiba.
Mm-hmm.
He did that. So the attraction is very high when you see I'm gonna put in 100 and I'm gonna make 3 or 5 or 1,000 out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep it cool, and you actually you don't look you're not you don't dress in an interesting way, let's say, or stuff like that. No offense.
Well, I mean, I used to wear unicorn T-shirts. I think the only reason I don't wear the unicorn T-shirts now is just that I don't want it to be really easy for anyone in the street to notice me.
Okay. And also the kitty bag.
Yeah. Well, I still have now I have an elephant bag that I bought 2 years ago in Zambia, and we walk around with that.
And I've seen you carry a 2-year-old phone.
A 2-year-old phone?
Smartphone.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
is it new?
This is 1.5 years old.
One and a half, not 2.
Yeah.
My bad. So you're not actually big on expensive things. You do.
Right.
But you could own the entire thing, as far as the eye can see.
You want me to own Bucharest? Why?
Wouldn't you like that?
What? Oh no! I don't know. That seems kind of centralized.
Okay, but what are your plans with your wealth? Do you have any plans going forward?
Just like give it to projects that I think are doing meaningful work. Yeah.
That's it.
I don't know, like what
No
else?
private jets, no nothing. Mansions, islands,
I don't know. That stuff is boring.
space travel.
I don't know. I feel like Elon and Jeff are doing a good job of that, so I'll focus on other things.
Okay, that sounds politically correct. So you're one of the new generation that a famous guy specialized in demography, Neil Howe. I don't know if you heard about the guy.
I have not.
He coined the millennial thing.
Okay.
He said he was the first one to say how millennials should be. And they say this new generation is no longer no longer attaches to stuff, to currency, to houses, to cars. What do you attach to?
I think one of the answers is people, and another answer is personal growth. Another answer would be just like, I guess, projects and communities. Some of all those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because although it sounds decentralized, also the scientist tells us that these people are not so much anti-system as the previous generation. They believe much more in cooperation and working together. Do you think it's a natural shift, something that the planet might just need to survive, to come together?
I mean, I definitely think we need to cooperate much more somehow. I guess like how that happens is like a more complicated question. But I'm optimistic.
Okay, because I'm looking at you, I'm trying to understand what your values are. Because you have everything someone would like to have. Besides, let's say, pacts and biceps, there's also memes about that.
So biceps are not one of my values. That's
They're not.
No.
You don't appreciate the memes telling people, let's get Vitalik back in shape.
Okay. I mean, I guess I guess health is definitely one of my values, and I do try to eat good food and exercise a lot. But I guess
you do exercise?
I do. Yeah. I go on long runs often. But I guess the concept of health for the purpose of physical appearance is not really something I've ever cared about.
Okay. So personal development, working with the communities.
Yeah, personal development. Just continuing to learn, continuing to just understand more things. That's something I'll keep doing forever. I think I don't think learning stops when you get out of university.
And you're still very young. I've said that a few times, but you're still very young. So I'm looking at you and seeing someone that could start it all over again. And if you wanted to start all over again in a totally different industry, what would that be?
Interesting. Biotech could be one. I think biotech is going to be very important this century.
Okay, I was expecting gaming.
Yeah, that's is gaming totally different? Crypto is kind of a game.
It is. And you said Ethereum is like a virtual place.
Yeah.
So I can imagine walking around in the VR in the Ethereum ecosystem pretty soon. Few years, maybe.
I think we'll get there.
So biotech would be one.
Biotech would be one. I think it's going to have huge impacts. I think, I personally literally think both of us are going to survive the next 500 years.
Both of us.
Yeah.
Deal. Let's go there.
Yeah.
I actually dreamt of spending my last few years traveling in a satellite towards Vega, the Vega star. Go back inside of a star we came from, something like that.
Yeah, that's
very
nice.
romantic. But surviving 500 years is going to be interesting. Putting my conscience on the blockchain for everyone to see. Would you like that?
But then can't people download you and torture you?
A copy of you.
Yeah, but would you be you, or would you be you a copy of you? I don't know.
But if you could make it without the torture thing.
Okay, interesting. So people download.
Let's have a huge library in the blockchain with the greatest minds in history. Download it in there.
Okay, well, so let's see. What else would people be able to do? I don't know. I guess I'm still like, well, talk to me. Okay, talking to me is fine. I would definitely not want people to be able to like read my memories or anything like that.
No,
I know. I still think privacy is important.
Okay.
I think people should be free to like design their lives around what makes them happy and not around like what the latest like political and cultural trends decide is acceptable.
Okay. But how do you think you would evolve if you downloaded your conscience, or would you like to just to through biotech, through new tech, live inside a physical body?
Interesting. I guess it's not as important to me what kind of body I'm in, right? Like once you can upload yourself, like you can. Like there's advantages to being inside of a robot, right? Like one random one. Like have you heard of the Breakthrough Starshot project? And this is something that I know Mark Zuckerberg's involved and some other people are involved. Like they want to use laser sails, like a sail and like a laser pointed at the sail to accelerate like basically a very small computer to 1/5 the speed of light. And apparently it's actually possible to do this, right? Yeah. Not possible to do it to a human because humans are like, one, humans are really heavy and humans need a lot of food, and two, humans would just not survive the acceleration. They want to accelerate it to 1/5 the speed of light and just like push it toward Alpha Centauri. And like a product of humanity might be within the Alpha Centauri star system by the end of this century. Wow. That's amazing, right? Like
we could survive that.
Yeah, exactly. So like if if we upload ourselves, then like we might literally have a human by Alpha Centauri at the end of the century if you just like put it on one of these laser sailcraft. Like that's amazing, right? So you can explore space.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
But how do we not get bored?
This is the other kind of deep philosophical question, right?
It's gonna take a while,
right?
To see the universe.
What will we do if we have this post-scarcity utopia and like we don't have to work to survive and like will we be kind of happy just playing video games, or like will people
Ready Player One?
Right? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I think. I kind of have this instinct that I think we'll survive that transition better than most people expect. One reason why
would. You could be downloaded into an Android and be happy with it.
Yeah, that's true.
Today.
I guess, right. I guess like the deeper question is like, can we be happy if like where would we get our sense of meaning from if would we decide that like to have as a goal like just like more science and technology, like exploring space? Would it just be like playing games among ourselves? Would it be something else? I don't know. But I like the reason why I think it's not going to be that different is that I think it's like have you heard the phrase the future is here but not evenly distributed? Yeah, like I think in some ways it's like they're already, right? Like people who are wealthy today like basically are already in kind of post-scarcity world.
Of course.
And like the thing with being wealthy and being in that kind of world is that like it just some people say like it's not so much that it makes you better or makes you worse. I think it just like makes you more you, right? Like I think if you're it gives you the freedom to do all of like anything, and if you're the sort of person that just like wants to kind of like control and or kind of be important and have a lot of people follow you, like in our current world you can do that. If you just wants to kind of be part of like making science and technology better, you can do that. If you wants to just like forget about everything
once you have financial independence,
and if you just want to forget about everything and just go on a beach, you can do that, right? And
get lost.
Exactly. And like some people handle it well, some people don't handle it well. But I think
but you're living that way. You're actually in that post-scarcity scenario yourself. And that gives you the freedom to travel, to talk to people and imagine different futures.
That's true. Yeah. And I think I think the thing that we should be working toward is just like making a world where that's reality, not just for a few people, but for everyone.
So this is why we need financial independence, but that's a long way ahead.
It's a long way ahead. I think we can get there. I think we just need to kind of get the global economy up a few more steps. I think, right now, just like one of the things that crypto and blockchains can do is just make it easier for everyone to participate in the global economy.
Of course.
But, that's like ultimately that's still a stage, right? Like eventually we want to get to the point where people don't have to participate in the global economy, or at least they can, participate in whatever way they want, essentially, instead of having to just design their entire lives around making money.
Of course. Because your generation, the new generation, is no longer focused on that. They don't care so much about money. They don't care, again, about things. Do you actually own a house?
I just kind of like... I don't really, normally, I don't really spend more than 1 to 2 months in any single country, right? So my life is just kind of like staying with friends, hoteling, Airbnb-ing.